Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Crimes, Killers, Cults.
And beer.
And beer.
I'm Bill, and this is my lovely co host, Sandra. And I think this is episode 143. It might be 144. I'm not sure. I should really write that into the notes. But this is an episode I've wanted to do for a very long time. It's about Dexter characters of the TV show Dexter who were inspired by real life killers. There's quite a few. And I'm not just talking about the big dogs like Trinity, who we'll get to. Lots of the scumbag of the week Dexter victims are also based on real people. And so, I mean, we're not covering all of them, because if we covered all of them, we'd wind up with a 6-part series. So this is just going to be a one-off because we're going to cover the heavy hitters in this one. I don't really think anybody would want to listen to this one and then listen to like a part two, which did nothing but talk about you know the bad guy of the week in season 6 and 7 or whatever, which a lot of people think are the two worst seasons that Dexter ever did. 6, yeah, 7. Well, wait, there was 8. Whatever, but just some that caught my eye in the early seasons and a few from the later seasons and everything with the big bads. But we're also proud to have with us Jim Groves of the Horror Movies and Shit podcast. What's up, Jim?
How we doing, guys?
He's a true crime and Dexter fan, and he's sitting in with us on this one. Tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Well, I do a weekly podcast with my buddy Mark. We met at a horror movie convention, and we were doing trivia, and I annoyed my partner at the time so much that he's like, "You guys should just record this." So we did, and that's what we do. We just talk, we drink, and talk shit about horror movies.
Nice. Are they good horror movies or are they bad horror movies or are they
Both.
both?
It's both. And we've been very lucky lately to get a lot of independent filmmakers and actors and actresses from independent films on the
Oh,
podcast.
cool! That's
The
awesome.
biggest,
Nice.
the one I'm most proud of was
Oh,
the actor that played Butterball from the original Hellraiser. It was amazing. We got to sit and talk
nice.
to him for quite a while. He was a great guy. I don't know why. I think I've had too much to drink because his name is escaping me right now.
Doug would probably know. He loves Hellraiser. That's one
Yeah,
of his favorite things. He drugged me to the theater to watch it, because they were showing it at like the Brandon Theater. And he's like,
right.
I've never seen it on the big screen. I gotta go see it. Just
I mean, I
yeah,
get that
drugged
because
me to it.
I recently went and saw the original Friday the 13th on the big screen because I'd never seen it before. Simon Bamford. Thank God for Google. I don't know why I couldn't remember
Yep.
his name.
Simon Bamford. Yep.
Well, we're
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna sum this up with a with a mic drop statement, and then we'll get started. That
But I
insur-
digress.
that no that insurance commercial. How are we gonna get out of here? There's a car sitting right there that's running. What are you, crazy? Let's hide behind the chainsaws.
Yeah, that's about true.
Yeah. So anyway,
Mhm.
so we're gonna start with Brian Moser. Obviously, we have to start with Brian Moser, Dexter's brother, the ice truck killer. Now he's a mix-up of two different killers. BTK, Dennis Rader for one.
Yep.
Now, BTK didn't drain the victims of blood in an ice truck, but Moser's other trademark was to cut up Barbie dolls. BTK sent knockoff Barbie dolls to the press and to the police as part of his taunting. Um, he's also likely based on a unsolved serial killer case in Istanbul, not Constantinople, where where um, where 8 people were murdered between 2000 and 2001. 6 women and 2 men were killed, and their legs were severed. That was Brian Moser's MO as well, but he did a lot more than just the legs. But you could also compare him to Jack the Ripper because of the surgical precision that Moser used in the cuts on all of his victims.
That's fair. That's fair. So I wonder. like BTK went silent, like radio silent for a very long time.
He did.
Do you think, like, I often wonder to myself, was it because he just couldn't get away being a family man and, upstanding member of his community and all, aside from a murderer? Or do you think he was actually sated for a long time?
What I think happened, he was getting old. He realized it, and he was just gonna like basically fade into obscurity. And but then when when the anniversary of the Otero Motors came around, and they announced that it's like this is the anniversary and everything, and there was this author that was writing a book about the probably at the time was one of the biggest unsolved cases and you know in the U.S. next to the Lindbergh baby,
Right.
you know, um, but and then but of course he has a dark passenger like
Mm-hmm.
Dexter does. And the dark passenger was awakened by this, and the dark passenger in BTK's case was his pride and his ego,
Okay. Okay.
and he just had to come back, and he started taunting them again, and it's just like he couldn't do it, and the
Could
most
have
famous,
gotten away with it.
yeah,
If it
if it,
wasn't for you meddling kids.
yeah, that meddling dark passenger, but um, yeah, here we have a picture of um BTK and Brian Moser. There we
There.
Ah, there you go.
go. But um, so that's them.
I
Hairline needs to recede a little bit more for.
right,
Wow.
but
Yeah.
he just looks like an angry uncle. Like I would not want to be alone with that man. He just looks like he
No.
would kick the shit out of you for saying the wrong thing.
Yeah, we'll talk more about him coming up later, and I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about. But
Mm-hmm.
um, but anyway, we're not there yet. But oh, by the way, BTK in this podcast is episodes 93, 94, and 95. Yeah, we did a 3-part on him back when Paul was the co-host.
Nice.
So in season 1, episode 3, Dexter's father Harry was in the hospital. He was being poisoned by Nurse Mary, a nurse who had a lengthy count of people who had died under her care. And Harry knew
Sounds
that
familiar.
Mm-hmm.
and I'm getting there, Sandra. I am. um, but Harry knew that she was killing him, and he told Dexter to take her out. Yeah, this was Dexter's first kill. And but for those of you who may not be aware, Dexter's father groomed him to be this vigilante serial killer because of the horror that he endured as a kid. He was never. This is if I'm not going to go into all that. Everybody that knows Dexter knows it. Everybody that is interested can go watch the series. It's on Netflix. So,
Fair.
but Nurse Mary is based on many doctors known as Angels of Mercy who kill their patients and to put them out of their misery, so they say. Like Richard Angelo or Angels of Death, who do it for a sick thrill, like Jolly Jane Toppin, Harold Shipman, or Michael Swango, which is episode 124, which I believe that was your first episode, wasn't it, Sandra?
I believe it was. Yes.
I think it
Yes.
was.
Well remembered. Well remembered.
But that scene was recreated in the Dexter prequel, which just ended recently. It's called The Original Sin.
Mm-hmm.
And here we have a picture of Jolly Jane and Nurse Mary. Yes, Jolly Jane is. Yeah, she was from a long, long time ago. So
I mean, I often wonder, especially with like the Angel of Mercy killers, where they get their ideas that it's their responsibility to end suffering. Like
right.
I'm fascinated by the psychology behind a lot of the motives, even though we don't normally get that sort of insight with these type of murderers. I'm fascinated by it, so I often wonder
Seems
about that.
very narcissistic, honestly. Like, I mean, you would think that maybe they might have like, I don't want to say altruistic, but you would think maybe they think, oh, I'm doing a good thing. But honestly, I feel like it's a power thing. It's
Hmm.
I think it's more of a like a narcissistic thing. Like, I have the power to end this. I have the power to do this. It's within, my decision. But kind of, they're playing God.
Yeah.
Really. That would be
Well,
my
what
take
was
on it.
well, okay, and I put them. Yeah, I mean, say what you want, but God, what was the suicide doctor?
Kevorkian.
Kevorkian.
Kevorkian, yeah. I mean, I actually put him higher than these people
But he did
because
like
his
euthanasia. You know,
but his
these
quote unquote victims went to him to have this
Willingly.
done
Right.
willingly.
well, yeah,
Yeah,
I think that was different. Like, I mean, I'm also one of those people that uh believe in um euthanasia for people when they
Hmm.
want. I mean,
when they
they're
want it.
and it's becoming more common. I mean, Oregon was one of the first states to really put that into effect.
Yeah.
um and I mean, I think it's a good thing for people that are suffering, that
Hmm.
they want to go out on their terms. And great documentary if you ever want to watch it, if you're kind of interested in something like that. But it's called How to Die in Oregon, and it follows some patients that want to take the death with dignity law. They want to utilize it, so
Yeah, I
I
mean, it just the whole aspect of it is really religion because
okay.
it's like if you have religion, it's like, okay, if you commit suicide you're going to hell and all that stuff, but at the same time, if somebody, as somebody that experiences chronic pain all the time, I mean, I can definitely see where, like, if like one of my worst days was everybody's, was somebody's like normal average for every day, and then it got worse than that progressively. I could definitely see where it just put me out, just, you know but then it's just like, there was that other case. This is Terry Schiavo.
I just watched a documentary about that
Oh,
case.
Yeah, I mean,
it-
that
that one's tricky.
she was brain dead though.
She was brain dead, but at that point, like, yeah, she was tricky just because, we put a lot of emphasis on autonomy and the decision of the dying person. And her husband said she wouldn't want to live like that, but
Hmm.
the problem is that
But then
her
they're
wishes.
like, oh, okay, she sounds like a horny alligator in what she's saying,
Well,
and,
I
and
don't
she's
care
saying,
about that, but
and she's saying, oh, I want to live, and somehow they brought that out of, what she said.
see, but that
And it's
that
just,
doesn't really matter to me. Like, what really matters to me is the fact that her wishes were never truly well documented. We don't
Right.
truly know what her wishes were. And my thing is, for whatever reason her parents wanted to care for her. To me, I feel like, you know what? I Since her wishes weren't well documented, I almost feel like, let our parents care for her if they want. If that's what they want,
yeah,
if they
well,
want to care for her, let her care for her. I mean,
the
I
mo-
get it, but like,
the
everyone knows that I would never want to live like that. I've told
yeah.
my husband, and here it is documented in film. Like, if I was ever a vegetable, like, please just let me go. Like, that's not necessary to keep me alive. But with her, you don't really know. I mean, maybe she would have said, you, you know don't would want you to exhaust everything, and if you thought that there was any hope that I could recover even in the slightest, keep me alive, was what she wanted.
Yeah.
She didn't know.
The moral of the
So that's a
story,
tricky one.
the moral of the story is have a will.
Exactly. That's what I was just
Yes.
going to say. Have a living will. Be done with it. Don't leave it up to anybody to make that decision for you.
Right.
Yeah. And for her, like I said, that the only people that could make decisions for her were her parents and her husband. And again, her
Hmm.
husband said she wouldn't want to live like that. I could respect that maybe she said that to him before. But her parents wanted to care for her, and in lieu of her wishes and the
Well,
uncertainty of
one
it.
thing I don't remember about that case hearing about it was a lucrative life insurance policy. I don't
There was
remember
one.
hearing anything. Yeah, so
No.
I mean, so I do believe that when she started going downhill, she probably did tell her husband, just like, hey, I don't, if this gets any worse.
Well, she didn't go downhill. She collapsed. She
Yeah.
had a low potassium and her
Oh,
heart
okay.
stopped.
Yeah, you're
She
right.
had a traumatic event and then she lost oxygen to her brain.
Right.
So the thing with her was it was a sudden thing. It wasn't like she was in decline. And he said, "Well, we've had conversations before and at one point she might have said to me, I wouldn't want to live like that." But again, who knows what she said to him
Hmm.
in passing, and she didn't have a living will. So to
Yeah.
me, I feel like her parents wanted to care for her, and as ridiculous as I might think it would be to
Well, actually, Sandra,
waste
I've
money
kind
and
of,
keep her.
I'm kind
Yeah.
of, I'm kind of leaning toward your side now,
So
because
I
it's like
Yeah.
if there was no life insurance policy or anything like that,
No.
she's brain dead. She's not coming back or anything like that. I mean, it's like every doctor that examined her said that. But but if the parents want to do it, let the parents do it. It's not going to hurt anything. It's just
No.
basically the husband would have to be like, okay, like I'm signing off on this. This is all
Yeah.
you. Good
all
luck.
so
I hope I'm wrong. I hope she pulls through, but good luck.
so I can
Yeah.
actually speak
Holy
with
crap! I just
a little bit of experience on this topic because when I was a kid, my aunt went into the hospital to have twins, and when they were delivered, they had to have an emergency cesarean, and the doctor got amniotic fluid into her bloodstream,
hmm,
and it went up and it fried her brain.
Hmm.
Within 3 months, her husband did not want to take care of her anymore. So he did what at the time I thought was absolutely ghastly and divorced her and made her a ward of the state. At that point, my grandmother then took over her care,
Hmm.
which if that's the way that if it had been approached that way, yes, he would have been condemned for a bit, but it would have absolved him of any of the crap he's had to put up with for the last 30 years.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and honestly, again, it's that thing where he could have just said, "Okay, I'm going to legally divorce her,
Yep.
and I'm going to allow her parents to take care of her to whatever extent they feel like taking care of her and allow her to be in their care." Like, I mean, me personally, again, like, I know how difficult that must be to accept the fact that your family member is brain dead, that
Right.
they're never coming back, that there's no improvement. But at the same time, it's not my decision to, they wanted to take care of their daughter. They
Yep.
wanted their daughter, and they felt like she was still there, and they were willing to sacrifice their time and money and effort and everything to care for her. And God fucking bless them too. If they want to do that, fine. I would have been like,
yeah,
release her to her parents, you know, at that point.
I almost think though I have a little bit of respect because he did fight so hard for her because I feel like he really knew that those were her last wishes, right?
Yeah.
I can speak from experience, when in past long term relationships, you have those conversations with your
Yeah,
partner.
you do.
So I have no doubt that it got said. It just became sticky because the parents didn't want to give him that autonomy when it really becomes a definition of marriage at that point, right? Is who now becomes the decision maker.
right.
And I think that's where it got really sticky. So we can all sit in judgment all we want as far as what we think we would do, but in that situation, we just
Yeah,
don't.
you don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
No, we don't, and I don't think either side should have really been condemned. I don't think
yeah.
either side was evil or wrong or
No,
something
right.
like that. I mean, I know that if something like that happened to me, that Doug would be like, she didn't want this,
Yeah,
she don't want this. And I don't think any of my family members would believe that either, because I've told them the same thing. But shit, what if they did? What if
yeah.
my mom said, "Well, I want to care for my daughter"? Like, it's neither
That's
one of them is wrong. Neither one of them's wrong.
I
If
don't
I didn't
disagree.
write my wishes in a living will,
Exactly. That's
you
the
know.
part I was going to say. I have a living will set up. So That's all taken out of the equation. I have well documented what I want done if something happens.
Yeah. I'm going to say one thing, and then we'll move on. Nurse Mary and the Dexter series, season 1.
Yep.
She's played by Denise Crosby, aka Lieutenant Yar from Star Trek: The Next Generation, Sandra.
Oh, nice.
Wait, you're not going to talk about her best role, though?
Huh?
You're not going to talk about her best role, though?
Her what?
Her best
Best
role.
role. Which is?
The wife in Pet Sematary. When she's
That is
telling the
true.
story about Zelda.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Season 1, episode 5. Jorge Castillo was a coyote who would double cross the people that he was supposed to be bringing into the U.S. Once the person was there, he would demand a ransom from the person's spouse or family. They paid, or the spouse or family member disappeared. And he kept them in a warehouse, like in squalor, with a bucket to piss and shit in. This is very similar to what Ariel Castro of Cleveland did, as far as the living conditions that he kept his victims in.
Mm-hmm.
He had 3 female victims, and he impregnated one of the girls 5 times. But he always made sure that they had miscarriages. um, one of the girls actually did give birth, and one of the girls actually managed to escape the house, which led to Castro's arrest. And he killed himself shortly after the arrest. But he kept these women in his basement for years,
Mm-hmm.
raping and abusing them like all the time and everything, setting them against each other, torturing them. Just basically, they could make a really nasty horror movie out of that story.
I mean, I forget the guy's name, but he kept his daughter in a basement for, 20 years?
Joseph Fritzl.
Yeah. That's nuts.
Yeah.
They only had one kid together, though, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Fritzl?
Yeah.
He had multiple kids.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
With his daughter?
With his daughter, yeah.
Okay.
But, I mean, it just, there's, I couldn't find a picture with enough resolution of Jorge Castillo, the character, so I just had to use the actor's picture. But that is definitely Ariel Castro. Right
I
there.
mean, I might let the actor kidnap me.
Huh?
I might let that actor kidnap me.
Yeah, every once in a while, I think the same thing. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, was he flirting with me, Sandra? He had a knife to your throat. Oh, well, that didn't answer my question. I mean, let's
Right.
be honest.
Yeah. Also in season 1, when Dexter was trying to draw out the ice truck killer, his brother Brian Moser, for those of you who are just listening to this for the first time and maybe not knowing about Dexter, other than it's a wildly popular and awesome TV show, but you just haven't watched it yet, and shame on you if that's the case.
Sorry.
Go watch it. I'm talking to you, Sandra, and your husband, Doug. But
I don't have time. Okay, I'm a teacher. What time do I have to watch my fun stuff?
You're coming up on summer vacation.
Well, that is true. I do binge stuff over summer. I might binge some Dexter. I think I would like it based on what I know of it. I just have never really gotten into it, but I am waiting for The Last of Us season 2.
It's been so long. So long.
It has.
I feel like the lady on the Titanic. It's been 86 years.
I know, but Pedro Pascal is daddy, and I need to watch it. So
I agree.
But Dexter placed a Craigslist ad to bait Moser. Philip Markoff used Craigslist to lure his victims, and he would reply to ads and he would kill the victims when they showed up. And this was in 2009. And in season 1 of Dexter, that came out in 2006. But this has happened several times over the years. But BTK also used classified ads to taunt the police. So once again, that piece of shit. There's a lot of BTK in Dexter.
There is.
More than any other serial killer there. There's more BTK. And it's not just the bumbling, chucklehead that Dennis Rader actually was. I think it's crazy that his last name is Rader. You know,
It's fitting, right?
but season 1, episode 7, Neil Perry, who was mistaken for the ice truck killer. He was a serial killer, but he wasn't the ice truck killer. He was a crypto taxidermist who killed his mother and buried her under a slab in his yard.
Crypto taxidermy. That sounds like you're
Like somebody,
taxidermying Bigfoot.
Yeah.
or a jackalope.
Yeah.
Taxidermists to make a jackalope or whatever. Damn, I should have put a picture of a jackalope in here. But yeah, but that's what he would do. He would take he would take one thing and make them
Nice.
into another. They actually, in the episode, they actually have actual crypto taxidermy on display
See,
on camera in the episode.
I would actually love, I don't know if it's crypto taxidermy, but I would love one of those deer heads mounted with the wolf teeth in their mouths and stuff like that. For
Like
some
an
reason,
Evil
I
Dead?
think there's,
Like an
yeah,
Evil
for
Dead?
some reason, I think they're so freaking good. I've seen a few of them and I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. That's awesome. Like, I'm not a hunter and I, have no real use for a mounted deer head. But if I did come across one with wolf teeth,
Yeah.
it's getting purchased. It's going on my wall. That's just how it is.
Okay. Good to know.
Oh, but the crypto taxidermist, the crypto means cryptid. He's just making cryptids. So, but but
I would kill
like I
for
said,
a Jersey Devil a stuffed Jersey
yeah,
Devil.
Jersey Devil, Chupacabra,
Yep.
Nice.
Bigfoot, um, the Gibsonton Gator Man.
Frogman.
Mothman?
Him too?
Long
Although the
time
last time he showed up, a bridge collapsed. I don't know if we want to invite him to this party.
old school CKCB listeners will get the Gibsonton Gator Man reference. Gibsonton Gator Man isn't a real cryptid; it's something that I made up. Todd was doing a cryptid episode where he was talking about like British about like cat related cryptids,
Nice.
and I'm like, I'm gonna have a story of my own, but I made up a completely fake one, the Gibsonton Gator Man. And Gibsonton
Sounds like
is
something that could exist.
Exist,
I
right?
mean,
and
yeah,
Gibsonton, that's the carnival city.
that's the lobster boy.
Yeah, so
Gibsonton's lobster man. Although, I just thought about something totally unrelated. I said if there was some Mothman cryptid stuff, I think you'd have to like incorporate a lamp in it somehow, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Probably.
but no, he called that it was gonna be like an ongoing series, but we never did it again. But it was called the Cryptod series. But
What are you gonna say, Jim?
I was going to say that we're all from Florida, correct? Right.
Yes.
I'm on the East Coast. You guys are on the West Coast. Is that correct?
Not originally, but I am in Florida.
I mean, physically right now. And
Physically, yes.
None of us mentioned the one and only Florida cryptid.
Skunk Ape.
Yes.
That is true. To say I'm not a Florida native. I'm a Chicago kind of person, so
I'm
I don't
originally
really know
from
what's in
Connecticut.
Chicago. I mean, I guess.
Well, we've got I-4 covered. He's in Brevard County. I'm in Lakeland. You're in Tampa. So
I'll be in Tampa next weekend, actually.
Nice.
Horror movie convention. I can't wait.
Cool.
Spookala?
Yes, Spookala. Yep.
Spookala?
I might go.
That's how I say it. I don't know how they say it.
I don't know. I thought I was like Spookala.
So anyway, Perry killed his mother and he buried her under a slab in his yard. And this guy was based on Ed Gein, episodes 128 and 129. He also brutalized and killed sex workers, which a lot of these chuckleheads do.
Yeah. It's amazing how many fictitious characters are based off of the crimes of Ed Gein. Mm-hmm. It absolutely is astounding because you have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You have Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs.
Yep.
I mean, it's just
Art the Clown with the Saul scene.
Exactly. So it always amazes me how many people are based off of him.
Yeah, but also the actor that plays Neil, looks very similar to Israel Keys in some of the photos. And when I made the photo, yeah, I couldn't find the picture of Israel Keys that looked like the guy that played Neil Perry. Neil Perry was also that crazy guy in Battlestar Galactica that was like taking control. He's like, graph one, we do this. Graph two, we do that, and then wound up getting killed by Baltar. But anyway, there it is. We have Neil Perry. Neil Perry.
Okay.
We have Ed Gein and Israel Keys. But put a pair of glasses on him, shave his head down, and I don't know why I couldn't find that photo again. But whatever. But actually, somebody that comes up later looks more like Israel Keys than this guy does in this picture. But whatever. It is what it is. But in contrast, though, Keys didn't want the publicity. He didn't want to be wrapped up in what he called true crime bullshit, which there's a great podcast, a multi-part podcast, standalone podcast about Israel Keys' case, like a serious, like 10, 12, 15-part deep dive called, and they called it true crime bullshit. Yeah, it's like all the Israel Keys you would ever want. But Perry, on the other hand, he wanted the exact opposite. He wanted to be famous. So, but I really do think that Perry had something to do with with what they came up with for Israel Keys, and I think that this role reversal was intentional. That's just my opinion.
Do you want a little bit of useless movie trivia?
Sure.
So from The Exorcist, 1974, there's a scene where they have Linda Blair's character go into the hospital for some medical tests. One of the orderlies is an actual serial killer. And the movie Cruisin' with Al Pacino is based off of him.
Oh, wow. Damn.
Sorry, useless information.
You mean the actual the actual actor in the movie was an
Correct.
actual serial?
Right after the movie was shot, he was arrested.
Like got Rodney Alcala vibes. Valves. But in that same episode, Jeremy Downs, he was a misguided teenager, and he killed a man who had raped him. But, he had killed an innocent person, which put him on Dexter's radar. He was a gay sex worker as well. Jeremy Downs was. He wound up killing himself in jail. This could have been based on Ricky Casso. Ricky Casso was a drug dealer and a druggie. It's like you look up the term "never use your own stash,"
Yeah.
and there'd be a picture of him.
Okay.
But he killed a friend of his in what was judged to be a satanic ritual, when all it was a drug-fueled, just temper tantrum. Ricky just wanted to kill somebody. He was caught and he was killed, and he killed himself while he was in jail. And this happened during the Satanic Panic, and it kicked the Satanic Panic into high gear. I mean, Ricky Casso is episode 15. I got a picture of Jeremy Downs and Ricky Casso.
As soon as you said that it was deemed to be a satanic ritual, I was going to ask when it took place.
Yeah, it was in the 80s.
Yep.
But
I remember the Satanic Panic well.
So do I. Although, just for shits and giggles, I'm going to show you a picture of me when I was about the same age as Ricky Casso. Ricky Casso's a couple of years older than me, but and I mentioned this on the episode, but I hadn't figured out how to do this little this crap yet. But so here it is.
Spoiler alert! It probably didn't get any better.
Huh? Not
oh
what
my
I was
God!
expecting.
What happened?
I looked a lot like Casso back then.
That cross earring, like fucking.
That is 1987.
This was 89.
89. So I was close. I mean, in a decade, I'm off by 2 years. That's not too bad.
Right. This was 89.
I was about 7 years old, I think.
Oh, look at that cute little baby face. But
I was 9.
Like I said, what happened?
I don't know.
Age.
Life happened.
Age.
Yeah, I just had to throw that in.
Can't
I don't know.
grow
I
the
think
hair
I
like
would say you
that
look
anymore,
more
can
like
you, Bill?
I
No,
was
I
gonna,
can't really. I mean, I can get it long in the back, but no, no like up here, it's like really thin. I mean,
I would say you look more like
my daughter wants me to grow it long again and everything because I did at one point, but I'm like no self-respecting woman in her 40s or 50s or whatever wants a balding, gray-haired, long-haired guy.
I would disagree. I've seen women with exactly what you just described.
He
Um,
said self-respecting.
oh, right, that's the piece I was missing. Gotcha. But I will say this for you, Bill, is you look more like Eddie from Stranger Things than you do um, the murderer.
Cool. Eddie Munson. He was based on Damien Eccles of the West Memphis Three,
Yes, I know.
which he was innocent, by the way. That's one that we will cover eventually. That's
So many
that's a
things to cover with that one.
yeah, that's a
That
that's a
case
big
is
one.
such a
That will
nightmare.
be a minimum 3-part episode.
Yep.
But now we're into season 2,
Okay.
episode 6. A man named John Henry claims to have survived an attack from the Bay Harbor Butcher. Sandra, the Bay Harbor Butcher is Dexter.
Right.
Um, Dexter obviously knows that the guy's attacker was not the Bay Harbor Butcher. um, he claims the Bay Harbor Butcher tied him up in the boxcar of a train and assaulted him. The would-be killer said that he was the Bay Harbor Butcher, and his victim was recently released from jail for home invasion and assault, but not for murder. So he obviously didn't fit Dexter's code.
Right.
FBI agent Frank Lundy is on the case, and he was the first to say that they were likely looking for a copycat vigilante, not the elusive Bay Harbor Butcher himself, because at the time, as far as they knew, the Bay Harbor Butcher was still alive, and the person who went down for it, which I'm not going to spoil anything for you, Sandra, or anybody else that hasn't seen the series, the person that went down for it was still with us at this point. But so Dexter examines the boxcar, and the would-be killer had left some things behind, like rope. Dexter would have never done this. Dexter didn't leave anything behind.
Right.
But a suspect for the vigilante is found, Ken Olson. Um, his mother was a victim of home invasion, and she was hurt badly, but not killed by, take a guess, Sandra, take a guess. Jim knows. I've given you the
Uh,
information already.
Mm-hmm.
you're implying that I was listening to you.
John Henry, the victim,
Yes.
the victim.
Ah, mm.
So at this point, Olson's on the run. They begin looking for him to question him. But before too long, Olson saw himself on TV, and he showed up at the police station with a lawyer. During the interview, Olson played dumb, and he said that he was glad that Henry had been attacked because Henry had almost killed his mom. Olson also had no alibi for the time of the attack on Henry, and Lundy flat out accused Olson of being the vigilante. The interview ends, and Olson is kept in custody. And why am I going into such detail on this particular episode, you might be wondering? All will be made clear shortly. There is a method to my madness. I
Are we
promise.
putting a knife in that?
Yeah, put a knife in that.
And
Yeah, so
Jim,
first,
if you've never seen the podcast, instead of putting a pin in things,
this is a true crime
Bill
podcast.
puts
We
a
put a
knife in
knife in it.
things.
It fits. It
Mhm.
fits.
So with Olson in custody, Dexter goes to his house looking for evidence to prove that he fits the code. There, he found a wall covered with Bay Harbor Butcher newspaper articles, but Dexter is surprised when Olson walks into the house. He had been released, because they didn't they, what they had was circumstantial evidence on him. So he grabs Olson and he puts him into a headlock, asking him why he was so interested in the Bay Harbor Butcher. Olson quickly makes a connection that this man, his attacker,
I mean, it fits because it's Dexter, right?
Dexter, is the real Bay Harbor Butcher. Olson says that he's just like Dexter because he takes out criminals. Olson admits that he had killed others, but Henry had just gotten away. He admits to running over a drug dealer with his car. He then admits to killing a coworker because the coworker found out that he, Olson, was fucking his wife, and the coworker, you beat his wife for it. So he pushed this guy down the stairwell and broke his neck. Olson then says that Dexter can't kill him because he was taking out bad guys. Dexter says he wasn't going to. He wasn't going to kill him until now because he admitted and boasted about 2 other murders. Like, you dig your own grave, motherfucker. Surprise, motherfucker. So Dexter chokes Olson out. When Dolson wakes up, he's in the very same boxcar that he had taken Henry to, and he's strapped to a table now, helpless and afraid. Far too late for a beg for life. Receive the mercy you gave. If you know, he knew that would happen at some point in this episode. Because that's a line in my song, Dark Passenger, on my album Intruder. It's written about Dexter. It's also the CKCB intro and outro music.
It is a good song.
Thank you. Appreciate that. But I'm going to play the full song for the outro rather than just the guitar solo outro that we normally use. I'll play the full thing for the outro of this episode. And no, but that's not why I'm diving into this particular Dexter episode. Like I said, there's a method to my madness.
It's not just a shameless plug for your music.
Well, it is that. but
not just.
Right.
Okay. Get it.
But Dexter educates Olson on how a proper kill room should look. Plastic everywhere, clean, not a dirty boxcar. I mean, they're in the dirty boxcar, but it's all wrapped up in plastic and everything. So it's clean and sterile where they are. Olson begs for his life, saying that he did it because of Dexter. Dexter disagreed, and he said that he did it simply because he wanted to. He had beef with these people. Dexter then, robs Olson of his delusions, saying that he was not the Bay Harbor Butcher, and then he stabs him. So this guy died thinking that he wasn't killed by the real Bay Harbor Butcher. And next it cut. Huh?
Go ahead.
Oh, I thought Sandra said something.
I didn't say anything. That was Jim. I thought Jim was going to say something.
I was going to, but I didn't want to cut Bill off. So what were we going to say?
Just cut
next
him
it cuts to. See how much she loves me. It's like it's like I'm having a it's like I have a teenage girl as my co-host, like my teenage daughter, with all the lip
Jim,
that she gives me.
You realize if you don't cut him off, you'll never get a word in edgewise. He will never shut up. So just cut him
I've got a script. You think I remember this shit?
I wonder about this when I'm watching Dexter, or when I watch the seasons of Dexter, is if Dexter takes out bad guys, why did he never take himself out?
Oh,
with all of the inner turmoil, he never thought he was a good person, right? He always knew there was something wrong with him, and he always felt there was something wrong with him. Why did he never take himself out?
Because Harry, his dad, had basically imprinted on him that he was doing basically a good service to the world. Yeah, he's a monster. Yeah, he's a killer, but he's like like it says, I'm correcting what the in my song. I'm correcting what the law got wrong. Um, and I can't even remember the freaking lyrics to my own song right now because it just I try to focus on it and right out the freaking window. But
Too many
still,
Bud Lights.
it happens. I know how to play about 200 songs plus on guitar and everything. But you ask me if I've got a guitar in my hand. You ask me what songs I know.
No, none.
None. I can't think of any. Like it's the same
What's
So
your
same
favorite
thing.
food? I have never eaten
I
anything
have
my
never
entire
eaten
life.
anything in my entire life.
So, Bill, what you just told the entire world and all of your listeners is you suffer from performance anxiety.
Mm.
No, it's a well, maybe so, but it still is a common thing among musicians.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. It was just it was actually a sex joke. Like, I'm surprised you have a daughter if you have that problem.
God damn!
I caught it, Jim. I just
I
didn't
know.
want to say it. You saw me smile.
I did.
Bill just.
Sorry, I had to, Bill. You opened the door for that one.
See, this is why you have me and someone else, Bill, so we can gang up on you.
But you can throw barbs back at me. I mean, your listeners aren't going to give a shit about that.
See,
It's
he
okay.
can throw them back at me. Like, my feelings aren't hurt. It's just the viewers would be so upset
Right.
if he said something cruel to such a lovely young lady such as myself.
Because you're very, very demure, right?
Yes, exactly. Thank you. I am.
Next, it cuts to the police searching the area. They they find Olson's body in the train car, butchered and wrapped in trash bags. Classic Bay Harbor butcher MO, except for the fact that the body was left.
Right.
So they figure that the real Bay Harbor butcher had tracked Olson down, killed him, and left his body to be found to signal any other wannabes not to try it. And they were exactly right. So now I'm going to tell you why I went so deep into this particular episode. Because I have 3 real life serial killers who claim to be inspired by Dexter, the TV show, according to these chuckleheads. So, see, there is a method to my madness.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Miles. He was a British teenager obsessed with the serial killer TV series Dexter. He murders his girlfriend, Elizabeth Thomas, in the bedroom of his house in Oxted, Surrey, in January of 2014. Miles had been diagnosed along the autism spectrum. He dismembered Thomas in a manner close to how Dexter Morgan rituals from the show were done, removing her legs, but only a single arm. And then, as Dexter would, Miles placed her body parts in cling film plastic and garbage bags. Miles told his family that he had an alter ego called Ed, who Ed Ed Gein. Ed Gein.
Mm-hmm.
I bet that has something to do with it, but
Everywhere.
yeah, but who often told him to do things, usually involving self-harm. He had been under psychiatric evaluation since 2012. Despite the presence of Ed, Miles was not deemed schizophrenic. Thomas, meanwhile, would often, prior to her death, would often defend Miles to her friends and classmates, saying that she was actually fighting for him. He had been long obsessed with both Dexter and gruesome acts of violence and had growing interest in killing. And according to Miles, Ed had given him instructions on how to kill his girlfriend, telling his sister, Ed made me do something bad, in reference to the murder of his girlfriend. In his interrogations and court testimony, Miles referred to Thomas only as the project. So he tried to play it off like he had a dark passenger. So he was sentenced to life with no parole, and he's been in prison. He was sentenced with God damn it. He was sentenced to life without parole until he's been in prison for 25 years.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I
I
mean, not
mean,
really interesting because Bill, I'm Sandra. I don't know how old you are, so I'm not going to presume, but I know
51.
Bill's around my age, so he remembers when the whole video games are terrible influences and they're going to cause kids to become criminals. This just all harkens back to that same thing. How can you blame a TV show for the way somebody behaves? I
Well, yeah,
hate that cop out
yeah, and
personally.
it's just like it's movies, it's heavy metal music, it's
Yep.
rap music. I mean, it's everything that doesn't.
Every generation has their own brand of,
Yeah,
this is going to make children into murderers and deviants and all
if it's
that.
if it's not sunshine, rainbows, and butterflies, it's evil.
That's right.
You
Hmm.
know, I mean, you could make the argument that Satanic Panic never stopped, although it did. It did stop. It's just kind of like remnants are still
It.
around and
I don't think it
everything.
ever stopped. I think it morphed, right? Because
It went kind of
I
underground a
don't want to
little
get
bit. It's still
political,
it's
but
still there. It's
yeah,
still
there's always
there.
something that is the bad guy, something outside of.
Right.
Well, I can't control my kids, so something else has to be doing it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And thank
So
you, Jim. You didn't presume, but I am 42, so
Still a little bit younger than me, so that's okay.
well,
Actually,
yes,
quite
yes.
a bit, actually.
And it's okay. But I tease Bill all the time about old, but but I won't tease you, Jim.
You
You're
can tease me.
dignified.
Yeah, you can tease me. It doesn't bother me. I know I'm old. Every morning I wake up, it's like I have Rice Krispies falling out of my bed.
I'd rather be a Gen Xer than a millennial. I'm just saying.
Oh, but see, technically, I'm a Zennial. I
Yeah,
am the oldest you can be and be a millennial,
right.
because I'm an '82 baby,
Yep.
and '82 was the first millennial year, and all my sister and my brother were all Gen X, so I have a lot more Gen X tendencies
Hmm.
in some ways than millennial tendencies, because
So do you
I'm
rag
I'm an
them? Do you
old
rag your
millennial.
brothers and your sisters the way you rag me?
Yes. Yes, I
Okay.
do.
Okay. Good.
I
I'm,
do.
gl- I'm
Yes.
glad we
Uh,
clarified that.
yes. Yes, my sister's 12 years older than me. My brother's 7 years older than me, so yes. So, yeah, when
So
I
you got
turned
away with
40, I
murder
was
then.
yes. When I turned 40, I looked at
On the
them,
next
my siblings,
CKCB
and
episode, Sandra.
I looked at them and said, "Man, you must feel really old.
Yeah.
Your little sister just turned 40."
I do that for my mother every year. How does it feel to be old? She's like, I don't know. You tell me. I'm like, you're 20 years ahead of me. So who's number two, Bill?
Okay, number two. Next, 17-year-old Andrew Conley of Indianapolis, Indiana. In October of
Mm.
2009, he told, of course it's Indiana, but he told people that he wanted to be
Ah,
like Dexter.
Hmm.
I'm from Indiana. Don't you
I know, like I
see?
said.
That's why he said that.
Damn right.
Gotcha.
That and a lot of cults came from Indiana, too.
Oh,
Ooh,
we're just good at cults, I guess. I don't know.
I
got to be
mean,
good
it's
at something.
farmland or cult. What else do you have in
It's
Indiana?
sure, you got to be good at something. It sure as hell isn't road construction.
Well, no, I will 100% agree with you. That is very, very true. I'm with you on that one. Indiana is fabulous when it comes to the roads. So's Florida. Let's be fair. I mean,
Oh,
I mean, I
I'll take driving in Palm Bay versus driving up a highway or an interstate for that matter in Indiana any freaking day of the week.
I live in Palm Bay, and they just redid my road, so it's not too
They
bad
actually
right
did
now.
it. They didn't
Yeah.
just patch it. They didn't just patch the
No, this is the
pothole.
third
Holy
time in five
crap!
years they've retarred my road.
Holy
wow.
crap!
There must be somebody
Wow!
important here because I don't pay that much in taxes.
Wow! Anyway,
Oh,
he told people that he wanted to be like Dexter. He also said he had also been telling people for a year that he fantasized about killing people. Well, obviously, if you want to be like Dexter, then you got to also want to kill somebody.
Well, they could just want to be a blood splatter expert. It's just research, right?
Yeah, true. Or he could want to have like gorgeous women like Rita or like Hannah McKay or what was the name of that British girl that he was with?
Oh, I don't remember.
I don't remember.
I know you don't remember, Sandra.
I don't remember. You know what? Like, I don't remember. You're lucky that after work and everything else, after the weeks that I've had, that I fucking remember my name. Okay, like it's
Fair enough.
lucky. But oh my god, I think about blood spatter expert, and that would be the craziest career to actually have. You know, like what do you do for a living? I'm a blood spatter expert, but I mean, I sit in a room with like a pig carcass and chop it with an axe and see where the blood goes, and
Right?
that's when
And
you walk away from your date.
we actually see Dexter doing that because I haven't said this, but his career is a blood spatter analyst with Miami
Mhm.
Metro Homicide.
Yep.
He's yeah,
I
so
mean,
he
I don't
works
know.
within the police department, and he's a very prolific serial killer.
You know, my favorite part about police procedurals in general is very, very often they will have these weird consultants that have no right to be at a crime scene just randomly investigating things and solving the crime. I hate it. I hate it with a passion.
Well, they don't do that in Dexter. They run everybody off that's not supposed to be there unless a freaking horny detective going through a midlife crisis brings his little hot girlfriend along.
Right. Fair enough.
But but a few weeks later, a few weeks. By the way, Jim, me getting tongue tied, that's common whether I'm drinking or not.
Okay. Fair enough.
A few weeks later in November, he strangled his 10-year-old brother while they were wrestling. He wrapped the boy's head in plastic bags, but the strangling and suffocation wasn't the cause of death. The cause of death was that he bashed his brother's head in on the ground repeatedly. He then drove to his girlfriend's house and gave her a promise ring with his brother's body in the trunk of his car.
Hmm.
Well, you didn't expect him to unload it, did you? I mean,
Well, he did, but then
take some time.
he dumped the boy's body in a park. I mean, maybe dump the body before you go propose to your girlfriend, or
Well, where's the fun in that? What are they going to give? That was her dowry.
actually, you know what? That was something that Dexter would have done
Yeah.
because he did it frequently. Not so much. I mean, when he went on the first date with Rita, he was stalking somebody.
Mm.
I mean, again, you gotta invest the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that reminds me of a meme I read recently about, like, the officer, I pulled you over because you're driving alone while you're in a carpool lane. Well, officer, you're going to feel really stupid when you check my trunk.
Exactly.
So he was arrested and deemed to be a psychopath, but he pled guilty in September of 2010, and he was sentenced to life without parole. But next is the most infamous one of all. This is the one that most true crime podcasts feed on, and I'm leaving a lot out of this one. I mean, this is somebody that we'll probably cover at some point in detail. But for now, we're just going to give you the Reader's Digest condensed version of it. But Mark Twitchell, also known as the Dexter Killer, is a Canadian murderer who made the headlines in 2008 for his gruesome and calculated crime. Twitchell, wannabe filmmaker who had made a cheesy, low-budget Star Wars fanfic film, lured Johnny Allinger, a 38-year-old man, to a fake film audition from a Craigslist ad, no less, where he brutally murdered him. Twitchell's motives were seemingly driven by a twisted desire for notoriety and a fascination with the TV show Dexter, which follows the life of a fictional serial killer. But this case raised questions about the influence of media on violent behavior and the disturbing reality of a killer hiding in plain sight. So, I mean, we already kind of touched on that earlier. But so is Dexter responsible for these murders? I say hell no. But we already touched that. We kind of wound up on that earlier. We kind of already had that discussion, but so. Huh. Oh, and I've got a really funny picture here. Well, it's not really funny, but it's good one.
Funny
Shows
haha or funny weird?
Shows everybody. We have John Henry. We have the real Bay Harbor Butcher, Dexter Morgan. We have the fake Bay Harbor Butcher, Ken Olsen. Then we have Stephen Miles, Andrew Conley, and Marsh Twitchell, all in the same picture.
I would be I don't know that Dexter Morgan would have to lure me anywhere.
Yeah, well, that my husband would know I would disappear if someone was ever like, "Hey, I got a cat in some pajamas in the back of my van over here. Would you like to see it?" Oh God, she's dead.
Actually, you know what? I'd go somewhere with Dexter. Yeah, judging by the women that he led, I'd be wingman with him. I'd pick up his slack.
I don't. We're not thinking the same things there, pal. Just saying.
Yeah, I know. I know. So, in season 3, the rolling story was ADA Miguel Prado, who played by Jimmy Smits, wasn't it?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. Becomes friends with Dexter. Jimmy Smits also, Senator Organa in Star Wars, the prequels or the sequels. Not the prequels; they suck. But he becomes friends with Dexter, and he catches him in the act right after he had killed somebody that he was also after. Dexter, because he was caught, teaches him the code, but Prado takes it too far, and he killed a rival attorney, which ultimately lands him on Dexter's table.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very condensed version of that story.
It
is. But there's lots of cases throughout history of a politician killing someone. I mean, it goes all the way back to Roman times. I mean, shit. Yep. There's a salad named after it.
Too brute.
Why does everybody keep laughing whenever somebody says biggest dickus?
The Ides of March it's all about stabbing. That's really, coming together to stab in groups.
Yeah. But I found one that closely resembles Prado. It happened in 1998. So this very well could have loosely been the model for Miguel Prado. Byron Anthony Looper, a wannabe politician who lost just about every time he ran. He ran in 1988 for the Georgia House of Representatives as a Democrat, and he lost. He then also worked on Al Gore's campaign for president, and Al Gore also lost. So, but in 1992, he moved to Tennessee and became a Republican. He then ran for the Tennessee House of Representatives in 1994 and lost. In 1996, he legally changed his name to Byron Lowlife. That's probably the best freaking tongue tie that I've done in the history of this fucking show. Low life.
Low life. At least he's honest.
No, it wasn't low life. that was a I'm not going to say it was a Freudian slip, but it was something similar because my mind was thinking about him and everything. He legally changed his name to Byron Low Tax Looper.
I like low life better.
Yeah, me too. And he ran for tax assessor where he actually won for once, but he was horrible at it. There were lots of irregularities in his reports, and he actually rarely showed up for work. March of 1998, he was investigated by the TBI and was indicted on 14 counts of misconduct, fraud, theft, among other things, even inappropriate conduct around females, female subordinates. He was removed from office.
Females. Every time I hear the word females, I always think of a Ferengi. That's what I think of, like females. Anyway, continue.
I think he let. I think he let the females in his office wear clothes. But Star Trek reference. But
Yes, yes. Ferengi women are not
they
afforded the luxury of
of
clothes.
clothing, yeah, yeah,
Creepy.
yeah. But he was removed from office in 1999, and the Republicans actually disowned him.
I mean, that's
Ironic.
saying something, right?
Mm,
In
they don't
1990,
disown anybody these days.
hey, no politics, no politics. I'm just telling a story.
Yep. Nope.
I don't want to alienate half my audience.
No.
So, in 1998, he ran. So we're backing up a little bit after. I just had to throw in a bit about him being disowned by the Republicans. But in 1998, he ran for Tennessee's 6th and 15th districts for for state senator. He was running against Tommy Burks, who was expected to win in a landslide. But on October 19th, 1998, Burks was found in his car with a bullet wound above his left eye. There was actually a witness that saw Looper do it. Looper hauled ass, but he was later found in Hot Springs, Arkansas, with a childhood friend, Joe Bond, who later testified against Looper. This is the best part of the story. On election day, I mean, so basically, low life Looper was running unopposed because it was so close to the election.
Huh.
But on election day, Burke's wife won in a landslide by write-in votes. I mean,
Nice.
how awesome is that? A landslide.
Wow.
It wasn't even close. In 2000, Looper went on trial and he was found guilty and he got life with no parole. Yeah, I looked for all these stories and everything. I hadn't heard this story before. I mean,
No, me either.
I went into detail about it because because there's not really enough to do an entire episode on.
Right.
But here I got a picture of Prado and low tax. Yeah.
We should cross out the text and just like scrawl in life.
But all of these people, oh my god, they kind of look the same. I mean, he looks. I don't know. Prado looks more like a politician than Lowlife does, though.
I don't know about that. Prado sort of looks like a cartoon villain. Like I expect him to be twirling his mustache.
Yeah, I can see. Well, he kind of was in Dexter.
Yeah, true.
So now we're to Trinity.
Trinity. Of course, we're at Trinity. How could
Finally.
you not talk about Trinity?
Finally, we're going to talk about Trinity. Which, and Sandra's sitting there. Who the fuck is Trinity?
Is this a Catholic thing?
It kind of not really.
No, he was probably more of a Pentecostal, and I say that because of how culty the son of a bitch is in the series.
Well, first let her know who plays Trinity.
I'm getting there. I've got it in the notes.
Okay.
I'm getting there right now. Season 4's big bad, the Trinity Killer, Arthur Mitchell. He was played brilliantly by John Lithgow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And he was by far the scariest killer in the entire series. John Lithgow.
Amazing turn of a character because he's never done anything like this that
and he was
not really. He was more of like a.
He's comedy. Third Rock from the Sun.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Harry and the Hendersons.
Harry and the Hendersons. Yeah.
Oh my God, Harry and the Hendersons. Wow, that takes me back.
But no, it's just like when I can when it came out. I didn't watch this series as it came out. I mean, I binged it once I found out about it, and
Yep.
I started watching it. I was like, okay, this is freaking awesome. So, but when season 4 got, when I got to there, and it's like all of a sudden I see John Lithgow. I'm like, really?
Right.
Like, what the? Really? John Lithgow?
Comedic
But
effect.
no. Oh my God. I mean,
Mm.
for it, this would be like even bigger than like Hulk Hogan in wrestling turning heel, or more recently John Cena turning heel. This, I mean,
John Cena.
this is more because he's just sitting there, he's just a goofy, lovable, numbskull and everything, and just pretty, he was pretty much like you know,
Yep.
character cast, typecast or whatever the term is for it, and everything that he had ever done. But then he comes
Well,
out
I
and
don't know. John Lithgow, wasn't he? I mean, he did a lot of comedy, but oh, he was the villain in Cliffhanger.
I haven't seen
I mean,
Cliffhanger.
but that's a Stallone film.
Right.
It is, but it's a drama. But he was the bad guy, and I think he actually played a decent villain in that movie.
I mean, I've only seen the movie once, and I don't remember it, so I
Hmm.
can't. I don't want to despair. I don't want to disagree with you when I can't remember the film.
Right. But but he would go around the country killing a man with a hammer, pushing a woman to her death from like high up, making it look like a suicide, and then killing a young woman in a bathtub by like getting into the bathtub with her naked and everything, and then take a razor and cut into an artery in her and the the top part of her leg, letting her bleed out on him, basically in the bathtub.
Hmm.
This is why he was dubbed as Trinity's Threes, which is also a nod to BTK, Dennis Rader,
Mm-hmm.
because Dennis Rader was obsessed with threes. But later on, it was found that that in all of his things that he did, there was actually a fourth victim. But I'm not going to tell you what that fourth victim was. You got to watch the show,
Mm-hmm.
Sandra.
Mhm.
So
Get with me after summer, and then and maybe I'll have binged the entire series.
but like BTK, Trinity, he also had a double life.
Mm-hmm.
Wife, 2 kids, church man, plain old boring white guy. Trinity would go out of town on church builds and everything for charity and whatnot, while BTK would go out of town to install ADT security systems.
Mm-hmm.
But Trinity was also abusive to his family behind closed doors. BTK would pose in bondage poses wearing women's lingerie and photograph himself, and he was caught by his wife on multiple occasions. BTK's daughter, Carrie, recently discovered proof that Rader had also posed her in bondage when she was a child.
Wow.
This came out like, I don't know, less than a year ago. This bit of information, how BTK was doing his little, well, he called them ciphers and everything because he was trying to be like Zodiac, but
Right.
basically they were just word searches.
Mm.
But what as she was going through all of these word searches, she found Carrie, bondage. She found proof, and she went and confronted BTK about it. Her dad about it, and he, of course, had nothing to say. Well, fucking piece of shit. I mean, she
Mm-hmm.
was a baby. He was doing that shit to her.
Awful.
Yeah, I mean,
There's one killer I wonder if they got a little bit of inspiration from, because Bill, I think you and I talked about it when we were first introduced with Matt, is John Crutchley. Because he would keep women in his bathtub and then drain their blood.
I I don't know that one, or I don't remember that conversation
So
with Murder Matt.
I think,
But
but okay, maybe we didn't. Maybe that's just where you and I started chatting because Matt did an episode on John Crutchley for Murder Coaster, and
oh,
believe it or not, yeah,
Frickin' Port Mount Malabar,
yes,
Florida. Oh, okay, yeah,
2 miles
yeah,
down the road from where I live.
yeah, yeah. That was all right. give us a recap of that one because it fits.
Yeah, so he was arrested because he had a woman tied up in his bathroom. He had her naked and he was draining her blood. And she was so weak she couldn't escape. But over some time, I forget how long he had her, but she started to get her strength back and she finally escaped out the bathroom window. His wife and his mother lived in the same house with him. So I'm not exactly sure how he did this. They claim to not know anything, but I was lucky. Well, I don't know about lucky, but when in the early 2000s, I was in college studying crime scene technology, and his parole revocation hearing came up, and I got to sit in on it and listen.
Oh, cool.
Hmm.
That man is so devious. Like
He's
he's
what?
devious.
Devious.
Yeah.
He was literally crying about how he needed to take care of his family. He needed to, go home to take care of his aging mother. And he tried. So the crux of the revocation was that during his release, he was drug tested and came back positive. So they put him back in jail. And he claimed that some men broke into his jail cell right before he got released and blew pot smoke in his face.
That's not how it works.
Right? That was
Right.
his defense.
Yeah, I've only heard. It's crazy because when did this go down? Like 2000.
Well, that was his parole revocation hearing.
Oh,
I
yeah. It
want to
was.
say
It
the
was in the
crimes were like
80s.
early
It was in the
'90s.
80s or
Yeah,
nine.
it was
Yeah,
late '80s, early '90s, something like
yeah.
that.
But
Officer, you tested positive for drugs. Well, yeah, I had a poppy seed bagel. You tested positive for all of the drugs. It was an everything bagel. Okay.
no, but that's probably something that's probably definitely a case because I mean that's probably definitely a case that I'm going to cover at some point. But there's even elements of BTK and Dexter himself.
Yeah. So I was
He
going to
was
ask you that question. Do you know who the character of Dexter was based on?
Yeah, that's at the end. That's the
Okay.
grand finale.
Then I will not ruin it right now. I was reading
but
about it the other day and I'm like, oh, that's a really interesting case.
yeah, that's the grand finale. but and once again, it's I mean it's going to be like kind of a deep like a short deep dive on it and everything because
Mm-hmm.
there's not really enough there to do like an hour and a half 2 hour long episode on
Yep.
it. So it's just, I'm just covering everything, just like Reader's Digest condensed version because there's not like a whole thing. Anyway, we'll get to it. But yeah, um, elements of BTK and Dexter himself. Dexter was a scout leader for his adopted son Cody, and one night they were on a camping trip on an island. They had taken boats to get there. And I've talked about this on several different episodes, including the BTK series. But Dexter took off while after everybody went to sleep to go kill a victim, and then he went back. BTK did the exact same thing, not once but twice.
Wow.
um, and hold on, I got a little picture. BTK and Trinity. This would be interesting for Sandra to see.
Yep.
Look at his eyes, though. Look at John Lithgow's eyes in there, Sandra.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, he is totally in the freaking role. And in that scene right there, he is actually in the police station confronting Dexter.
Nice.
so,
I
but
do like John Lithgow. He's a good actor.
He's a
oh
great
yeah,
actor. Yeah.
I've seen every single episode of Third Rock from the Sun.
Oh, who hasn't?
Yeah, they're so great, especially
Him
for
and
us
Jane Curtin were
Gen Xers.
fantastic on screen together.
But so now we're going to season 5. The big bad there, Jordan Chase. Jordan Chase in season 5 is a mashup of several different killers, well, two different killers. He was a big time motivational speaker who, like world famous, like just one of these chuckleheads that got up there with a catchphrase, and then everybody like the weak-minded buy into it and all that stuff and everything. He's basically a cult leader, but a professional one, like a multi-millionaire or whatever. Well, anyway, um, he would he would he ran a gang of thugs who would kidnap women, keep them in a cell for an extended amount of time, where they would torture, rape, and eventually kill the women. Then they would be put in barrels and dumped into a swamp. Jordan would personally taunt the women as they were being abused by his thugs. I mean, it's basically implied that he never actually took part in the sexual abuse, but he was just directing traffic with his with his little gang of thugs and everything, his lackeys. But of course he did, especially the first victim. But still, we're not going to get into that. So, John Bunting, Australian serial killer whose crimes were dubbed the Bodies in Barrels murders or the Snowtown murders. He ran a gang of so-called vigilantes who, according to Bunting, were killing pedophiles. In actuality, they were just killing people who Bunting didn't like
Mm-hmm.
and stealing their government aid checks, and they were put in barrels and they were stashed in an abandoned bank building.
I just watched a documentary about this guy. He even had his band of thugs kill one of his stepsons.
Yeah,
Yeah, crazy,
yeah,
crazy, crazy fucker.
yeah. I mean, yeah, this guy. I mean, yeah. They say that Florida is Australia light.
Yep.
This this case proves it.
And that was what was so interesting about that case is he only paid for 2 weeks rent on that bank in the outback
Mm-hmm.
and was using it to stash all those bodies.
Well, it wasn't in the outback. It was in Snow. Well, Snowtown is in the outback.
It wasn't a very densely populated area, which is
Right.
why he could get away with it. Yeah.
Right. But but the crazy thing is, I mean, we're just going to get into that. Like they would taunt the victims. They were taunt. They would taunt the victims as they were being tortured. Like Jordan Chase was just like as like girls being beaten and everything, or like raped or whatever. He was just in her ear, tick tock. This is the sound of your life running out.
Yep.
John Bunting did the exact same thing, although he wasn't whispering anything. He would have the band Live's album
Yep.
Throwing Copper blasting, as he was doing it. And it's just like, I'm sorry, I love that. That's one of the few albums that came out in the '90s that I actually love.
It was a
I
good album.
love that album. That album was
Lightning
incredible.
crashes.
The
Yep.
lightning crashes, you know, the dolphins cry.
Shit town.
I mean, it's just, but, anyway, we covered that one kind of early on. It was episode 48. We covered it in detail, but another one Jordan Chase is based on is David Parker Ray, the Toy Box Killer. Um, he would abduct women and keep them in a shipping container that he had converted into a sex dungeon, where the
Mhm.
women would be savagely raped for weeks. And he would start them off with a demented tape recording that he would play for the women, explaining everything that was going to happen to her.
Hmm.
And some were murdered and then dumped, while others were released alive, but only after he had wiped their minds with like a week long concoction of sodium pentothal, being just
Wow.
basically literally wiped her freaking mind. I mean, this guy was a sick fucking. He That's one we'll be covering at some point, Sandra.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah,
Yay.
but I've got a picture.
Oh
I've got
boy.
I've got yeah. Everybody that hasn't checked out the YouTube page yet is going to check it out on this episode. Like, what the fuck?
What picture? Oh.
So we have Jordan Chase,
Oh,
John
look at him
Bunting, and
fucking smiling.
Yep.
yeah. I don't think that was an earlier picture of him. It was actually the best picture I could find and everything, and all of the ones of his like mug shots and stuff like that were like like low resolution. I couldn't use them. So, but still, that
Hmm.
yeah, that's David Bunting and David Parker Ray. That fucking mustache tells you all you need to know.
who played Jordan Chase?
Who played him?
Yeah.
It totally went over his head. I was just like, fucking with the mustache thing.
I know.
Well, I know. Well,
I heard you.
I was like, put that picture up next to Jim because I was like, they kind of bear a little bit of a resemblance.
Not
Only the mustache. Only the mustache.
okay.
That's it.
It was Johnny Lee Miller that played the character of Jordan Chase on the. I was like, I knew that face.
Yeah.
I could never grow my mustache that long. The minute it touches my lip, it hurts. Can't do it.
I can't even grow a full beard.
My mother always told me I'd never be able to either, but she's wrong. It just looks like pubic hair all over my face, so I don't keep it very long.
No, I have like patches.
Yeah.
I get patches and stuff like that. I mean, I can.
Hey, Doug grows a nice beard.
He has
of
a
course,
nice
like
beard. I didn't want to make it weird, but he's got a great beard.
No, he loves compliments on his beard. Like that's his pride and joy, and well, and it's also funny because like other men I know that can't grow beard, like my brother is one of them. He says all he can ever grow is like a scarf.
Yeah.
He's like, I can grow myself a scarf, and that's about it. Like I just can't get it.
It gets to the point where it's just hanging off my chin, and I'm like, I just keep pulling it. I'm like, fuck it, I'm shaving. I gotta shave it.
But so in season 6, the police find a body of a sex worker who had been dumped on the riverbank. She had been bludgeoned, and Dexter had found a broken tooth in her mouth. And this rang a bell in Dexter's head. It just like struck a memory. He remembered an Oregon serial killer, Walter Kinney, aka the Tooth Fairy Killer. He would beat sex workers to death and take a tooth as a trophy. And he would be an old man at the time, and Dexter figured that he had come to Miami and retire. Dexter tracks him down and fakes a friendship with him, and he was a bitter, crude, disgusting, vile man. But he vetted him, determined that this was, in fact, the Tooth Fairy Killer. And he even went so far as to find his trophy box in a storage unit. Teeth.
Mm-hmm.
So, lost my place. Okay, Kenny found out who Dexter was, and Kenny tried to kill Dexter, but Dexter, obviously much younger, much more experienced, turned the tables and killed Kenny. But in the lead up to this murder, Kenny admitted that that the woman that the Miami Police Department had found, he had basically run out of steam and everything, and he couldn't actually extract the tooth completely. But one of the murders from way back in the past, Kenny had dumped the body onto the lawn of a police captain, which Dexter admired him for. Kenny admitted that he was drunk and didn't know where he had dumped the body until it had made the news. But so the Toolbox Killers, Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris, did this too. They dumped the victim's body on a lawn in broad daylight. But I'm only going to bring a picture of Ronnie Cox, the actor that plays Kenny. I mean, we're only talking about an isolated incident that, the Toolbox Killers is a lot more horrible than what Kenny did in fiction. I mean, it's just like, I'm going to do that. We covered.
Was it
the Toolbox
Edmund Kemper that decapitated somebody on the lawn in the middle of the day?
Kemper, I haven't covered Kemper. I was waiting.
Funny story. He actually narrated 70% of all audiobooks in the 80s.
Yeah, he did. Mm-hmm. I don't think he ever dumped anybody on a lawn or whatever.
No, he didn't dump them. He was in the middle of killing them when they tried to get away, and he had to chase them down and finish the job in broad daylight on a lawn. I believe. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
I don't think that was Kemper. I don't think that was Kemper.
I'll have to look it up. I'll let you know.
But no, the reason I haven't done Kemper yet is because I was trying to get I was trying to get Kemper
Oh,
on the show, but not to talk about what he did. I wanted to hear his commentary on an episode about Herbert Mullins.
ah,
I think that would because the reason being is because those two were like cell roommates and everything, and Kemper hated Mullins. I thought, but yeah, he probably would if I had come up with this idea say 10, 15 years ago, he probably would have been all about it. But
yeah,
he's not. Kemper is not going to be alive much longer. But
yeah,
I'm going to put this picture up there just because I want you to. Ronnie Cox. If they ever made a movie about Jimmy Carter,
yeah, 100%.
that
Mm.
guy that guy could play an older Jimmy Carter. You agree?
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
And I only bring that up because Jimmy Carter, rest in peace, recently passed and everything, and just like say what you want to about his presidency, but everything that he did after that, I mean, if he was he was the closest thing the United States has to a patron saint next to, say, Fred Rogers.
Yeah,
you know,
And he made it to 100, right? Like, what
yeah.
was he? Was he 100 or was he 101?
I think
I
he
can't
was. I
remember.
think he died. I think he died shortly after turning 100. But I mean, this
Yeah.
was just like what a couple months ago when he died.
Yeah. Well, he
yep,
voted. He made it to November. He made
yep,
it to the election because he wanted to vote. I think he died like 2 weeks after the
something
election,
like
like
that.
something like that.
Something like that.
And I was sort of right. I was conflating two cases, but Edmund Kemper shot his grandfather in their
Oh
driveway in
yeah,
broad
yeah.
daylight.
That
Yep.
was in broad daylight. Okay, I got the next one ready.
Woo.
Season 7. We're winding down. Season 7, we meet the lovely and dangerous Hannah McKay, who Dexter would ultimately fall in love with,
Hmm.
like soulmate material.
Yep.
She was a poisoner serial killer, but when she was 15 years old, she went on a rampage with her adult boyfriend, Wayne Randolph. This was based on Charles Starkweather and his 14-year-old girlfriend, Anne Fugate.
Yep.
But there's also elements of Henry Lee Lucas and and Wayne Randall. Police took in the series. They took Wayne Randall around to various locations and everything to find victims and stuff like that. And they found him.
Yep.
They found victims in Wayne Randall's case, but Henry Lee Lucas, they obviously didn't because Henry Lee Lucas was full of shit.
He played the cops like a fiddle.
So, but I got a picture. I got
Okay.
a picture. Yeah, we have Hannah McKay, Wayne Randall, Anne Fugate, and Charles Starkweather. And then, of course, we have Otis Toole and Henry Lee Lucas. So, but
Nice mustache.
you got a confession you need to share with us, Jim?
I'll never confess.
We are almost done, I promise.
No worries.
No, big worries. It's 10:17 at night, Bill. Come on.
Also in season 7, Joe Jensen, the Phantom Arsonist. He would stage fires where his victims would be burned alive. And in one scene, he boarded a bus and sprayed it down, just sprayed down everybody with gas and he lit the thing on fire. And he had a fire suit on and he just walked off.
Hmm.
In 2008, a Canadian man named Tim McLean boarded a bus and was stabbed and beheaded and cannibalized on the Greyhound bus. His killer, um, Vince Lee, was apprehended, but was found not criminally responsible for a murder. He was released in May of 2015. And while this wasn't an arson case, it was on a bus and was likely the inspiration for that scene. no picture on that because I put the wrong person up. But
Damn it.
there have been other arsonists that use fire to kill and everything. Otis Toole, for one, like we just talked about in the picture with Henry Lee Pucas. But Henry Lee Lucas's episodes 51 and 52. Yet in another season, yet in another episode in season 7, Ray Speltzer, an unstable like musclehead, probably doped up on roids and everything, he would seduce women, get them to his house where he has a death maze set up. He would then dress up in his Minotaur outfit, which was basically just a horned Viking helmet with a mask, and he would hunt them through the maze and kill them with like death metal music going, blasting.
Another person that probably would have taken me out. That sounds
Huh?
like a lot of fun.
I know.
What?
I'm thinking about that. I'm like, yeah, that sounds that
Right?
doesn't sound half bad.
Yeah.
I'm like a Minotaur costume. I mean, but
That
then
sounds
again, you're talking to someone
You're not
who
walking out of
thinks,
it, Sandra.
It doesn't matter. Let me
True,
enjoy getting there.
But but see, I'm also the kind of person that if you've ever seen the movie Legend with Tim Curry,
Oh yes.
I mean,
Yes.
I'm
You wanted to be
sorry,
Mia Sarah, didn't you?
I did, and
Mm-hmm.
not for Jack.
Yeah.
I
It was the
mean, I
darkness.
didn't want the unicorns to die, but you know what? Darkness can take me back and
I
yeah.
mean, I think when she put on that dress, I think everybody wanted to be her just a little bit. Because that was a pretty fierce dress.
A little bit. Yeah. I mean, use those horns those are like, perfect grip. Anyway, so yes. So yeah.
Sorry, Bill.
No, I want Sandra to keep going.
You know what? That's also another absolutely horrible meme that I saw recently was from Beauty and the Beast. There was Belle after the transformation, and when her face is kind of like this, and she goes like, "But you still have the knot, right?"
My favorite meme is what is the difference between 50 Shades of Grey and the first 48?
What?
The
Never
millionaire.
seen. What?
The
What's that?
millionaire.
I still didn't hear you.
The
The
millionaire.
millionaire.
Oh yeah, okay. I've never seen. I've never seen the 50 Shades movies. I've never read the books, and I've never seen the first 48. So thank you for
Well,
clarifying.
the only good thing is if you ever want something funny, listen to Gilbert Gottfried reading 50 Shades of Grey.
I can imagine.
I don't think I could do that.
Oh, you really, really should. They did a little skit on it. It's like Gilbert Gottfried reads 50 Shades of Grey, and
Gilbert
it shows
Gottfried
just you
reading Gilbert Gottfried reading anything is hilarious.
anything. But this was great because it's just showing these women listening to this, and I think my favorite one was when this woman's like sitting on a park bench and she's just eating her salad, looking like. And it's like Gilbert Gottfried, like just my inner goddess has started to dance. It's like oh Jesus,
You know,
it's the best thing ever.
the only thing that probably would have been better was if Sam Kinison was still alive.
No shit.
Could you imagine?
Oh! Sam Kinison, George Carlin, Richard Pryor.
Yep.
That's the trinity of the great comedians that would still be every bit as relevant today as they were back then when they were with the exact same material.
Yep.
Because they totally are. Their shit that they said way back then is very relevant to what's going on today.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with George Carlin. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, God, God rest him.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, hashtag
But I
Sandra,
digress.
Jim, and no, it was just Sandra and Jim. They digress. Not me
Yeah, we
this
did.
time.
That's me.
But anyway, this whole thing with the Minotaur and everything with Spelcer, could be a reference to H.8 Holmes and his murder
Mm-hmm.
castle in Minnesota during the World's Fair.
Yep.
And you know, I was convinced of it, but I mean, I was pretty sure that that's what it was, because why else would you come up with something like that?
Right.
But when I was doing the research on it, there was a guy who wrote a book about H.H. Holmes. His name was Adam Seltzer. Um, the the character's name is Speltzer. The author that wrote a book about H.H. Holmes is Seltzer. I'm sorry, that's too much of a coincidence for me.
I mean, and the Holmes' additional claim to fame, other than being an absolute psycho, is
He
he's
wasn't Jack the Ripper.
who was going to say he was Jack the Ripper?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, but
My bad.
he's credited with being the first serial killer from in the United States. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
sure he's not the first, but he was the first that they investigated.
yeah, he was. But there was a conspiracy theory going around that Holmes had gone over to Great Britain and was Jack the Ripper, and
I
it's
had
just
not heard that. That's new to
yeah,
me.
but they've identified Jack the Ripper like recently. It's
Yeah.
one of the people that they had suspected. They found DNA and they linked it to him, so that case is basically
Really?
solved. Yeah,
Yeah.
which means it's a solved case, so we can cover it at some point. Because Sandra, I
I didn't
remember.
think they definitively solved it. I thought they
No,
always had a.
they had loose familial DNA. I believe is what it was. But still,
Hmm.
that's more than they had on anybody else and everything. And why else would anybody else have any type of DNA linked to the victims and whatnot? Because they kept the clothing and stuff like that of the girls that were killed.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but no, H.H. Holmes was not. And I was saying that, like Todd used to say that. Todd used to. My original co-host used to believe that H.H. Holmes was Jack the Ripper. And I kept telling him every time he brought it up, every time it came up, I was like, no, it was not Jack the Ripper. He was not Jack the Ripper. But anyway, we got a little picture here. There we got Speltzer and H.H. Holmes.
The mustache, yet again.
I'm looking at the goatee. I didn't even notice the mustache. Sorry.
No, the mustache on H.H. Holmes.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. I was ignoring the mustache. I'm going for the goatee this time.
Yeah. So, all right. Home stretch. In Dexter New Blood, which was the series that came out. But Jim, I couldn't do this. I couldn't do this series without the big
Yeah, of
bad
course.
in New Blood.
Yep.
But the big bad Caldwell, played by Clancy Brown, which is one of the greatest villain actors of all time,
And Mr. Krabs.
and Mr. Crab. But he was also Kurgan on Highlander.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
He was also the sheriff in Pet Cemetery too.
he was, but Kirk Caldwell was based on Robert Hansen. Caldwell kidnapped women in upstate New York and hunted them in the wilderness, and he kept the 30 bodies preserved in an underground bunker. And ironically, other serial killers would just keep trophies. He kept everybody and kept their bodies preserved.
Yep.
But ironically enough, his last victim, Shannon Liu, was a true crime podcaster who was like investigating this because she was investigating him. I don't remember exactly how she found out that how she got clued onto him, but Shannon Liu is a true crime podcaster who, in my opinion, she was based off of the Rotten Mango true crime podcast host Stephanie Sue. Shannon Liu, Stephanie Sue, both Asian women, both and it's just the way that the way this character Shannon Liu talked is a lot like how Stephanie Sue talks on the podcast Rotten Mango. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I don't know. And Rotten Mango is one of the podcasts I listen to a lot because it's just like you get a whole lot of information. She's incredible.
Yeah.
So Robert Hansen would kidnap women in Anchorage, Alaska, and he would rape them and then release them into the wilderness and hunt them. He killed at least 17 women between 1972 and 1983. There's lots of movies that have been based on Robert Hansen and what he did. Lots of them. I mean, there's just every movie about the hunt and everything. That seems to be a popular theme these days. There's been like at least 3 movies based on this in like the last like 5 years
Yep.
that have been released, and they all suck. but but now, once again, another Reader's Digest condensed version of it and everything, because that's somebody I'm going to cover at some point eventually. But wrapping up, we have drumroll Pedro Rodriguez Filho.
Yes.
And I hope I'm saying that right. But
it looks right. I don't know though.
Yeah, but he was once described as the perfect psychopath. In total, he was a Brazilian killer who was responsible for at least 70 murders, 10 of which he committed before he turned 18.
Yep.
And like many killers, Filho later claimed to have actually murdered even more victims. I mean, this bit is from allthisinteresting.com. I mean, he was the person who the Dexter books and TV series were loosely based on.
Yep.
When, what separated Pedro, I'm just going to call him Pedro, from other killers were his targets. According to Pedro, he killed more than 100 drug dealers, rapists, and murderers. In other words, he claimed that he had not killed anybody who was truly innocent, much like Dexter.
Yep.
Although Dexter, a couple times, he did. Even in the series, he did a lot more in the books. Dexter was a freaking monster in the books. Like big, he was. There was nothing redeemable about him in the books. But you haven't read the books, Jims?
No, I have not read the books yet.
Oh man, it's apples and oranges. I mean, they anyway. He only served 34 years in prison for the 70 plus murders that he committed, and then an additional 7 from 2011 to 2018 for crimes committed while he was detained at Sao Paulo.
Mm-hmm.
But then his career took another surprising twist. He became a YouTuber with a channel that urged people to stay away from the life of crime.
It's like my mother always said, do as I say, not as I do.
It was like McGruff, right?
Yep.
Or House of the Rising Sun. Don't you do what I have done.
Yep.
Yeah, Sandra's gonna. I sang twice in an episode. I didn't really sing that time. First time was my own song. Damn it!
Damn it. I think it's interesting because Pedro, it's reported that his first murder took place when he was 14.
Yeah,
like that's an incredibly early start comparatively.
Yeah, he was, but he fled to Sao Paulo in Brazil and everything, and it continued. He would rob drug dens and kill the dealers that he encountered, and he eventually earned himself a nickname in the media as a vigilante called, oh my God, the Pedrino Matador, which translates Little Petey Killer.
Easy for you to say.
Not really. During this time, he fell in love which also
Oh.
Dexter did a lot.
Mhm.
Maria Apraxidia Olympia, and he called her. He had a nickname for her. and they soon began living together. She became pregnant, but then she was killed by a gang leader hoping to strike back at Pedro, which also ties to Dexter's origin story.
It does.
Um, so that he wanted revenge, and he tracked down several people related to um, his mother's murder, or no, his wife's,
Yeah, her.
her, and killing them, and he wanted to find the man that took her life, but by the time that it was over, he had actually killed every single member of that gang.
Good for him.
He then switched targets and everything when his father murdered his mother with a machete.
Nice. Mm.
Incarcerated in the same prison, Pedro devised a plan to get revenge for his mother. He's like, I killed my father in prison. I was already in prison then. I'd spent 42 years in prison. My father was in prison. I arranged a well thought out plan, and I turned up at my father's cell, and and I had promised revenge on my mother's coffin. He stabbed his father 22 times and then ripped his heart out of his chest and bit into it.
I mean, how else would you kill a father? You got to assert dominance.
Yeah.
But another cool thing about, well, I don't know about cool, but another interesting fact about Pedro is he claims to have murdered 40 people while he was in prison.
Well, yeah, getting to that. He says, like I said, this is the condensed version, like all put together and everything. Basically, this all comes from allthatisinteresting.com. I mean, it's just like I've listened to podcasts on it, and the podcasts are like, they try to be like really long spoken about it, and the episodes are like 30 minutes long.
Yeah.
I'm going a lot faster than that. He said, quote, I just shoot it. I cut the tip of his heart off and I chewed it, and then I spit it out and threw it on top of his body. So before killing his father, Pedro had found himself, back in prison and everything. He was placed in a police car with two other criminals, including a rapist. And when the police opened the car door, they found that that Pedro had killed the rapist. He killed at least 47 of his fellow inmates, which made up a majority of his murders. And by his own account, Pedro believed that each of these convicts deserved to die. He claimed that he never killed innocent people, and this, despite getting a tattoo that said "Mato por prazer," which translates to "I kill for pleasure." His motivation was an anger and desire for revenge, not bloodlust. He was initially sentenced to 128 years in prison, but the killings that he committed increased, and which resulted in his sentence bumping up to 400 years. but per Brazilian law at the time, the maximum sentence anybody could have was 30 years. So 400 years, but you only get 30. So in the end, he only served an additional 4 years for the murders that he carried out in prison. So he was released in 2007, and he took a job as a night watchman. Pedro is notorious in Brazil, not for just the many people that he killed, but for targeting criminals. After his release, he became an anti-crime advocate, and he actually spoke candidly about his life and crimes. His newfound celebrity obviously helped inspire Dexter.
Yep.
The books and the series. But in 2011, he wound up in trouble again, and he was placed back in jail. But this time, he was only charged with threatening others, illegal possession of weapons, participating in illegal riots. And he was released from prison once again in 2018 for good behavior.
Wow.
He was a free man. He made the conscious decision to launch a YouTube channel where he, like I said before, he talked about his cautionary tale. He told his viewers about his criminal history and warned them to avoid a life of crime if possible. But his story came to an abrupt end on March 5th, 2023, when he was killed outside of a family member's home in San Paulo. He was 68 years old, and his throat was slashed, and he sustained multiple gunshot wounds from assailants in a black car.
Wow.
The suspects fled the scene, and the police found the car that they had been driving, as well as like ammunition from the same ammunition that was fired, and apparently one of the anonymous assailants told one of Pedro's relatives, "It's nothing to do with you. Take your daughter and go inside." And to this day, his murder is still unsolved.
Wow. It's very interesting.
So now season 9 of Dexter. I'm kidding, Sandra.
So, Sandra, are you going to check out the show now?
I will check it out. Yes, I'd always intended. It was always something that I'd thought about watching, but there's a lot of stuff on my, on my burner, and sometimes normally when I come home from work and I'm exhausted, I always say that I don't have the spoons to watch something new because then I have to pay attention to it. I just want something mindless that I've seen before, and that's just
if you watch Dexter, more than likely the first episode will grab you. If the first episode doesn't, and you watch the second episode, you'll be grabbed by the second episode. I mean, it grabbed me with the first episode. I mean, I was just like all in.
It was a very interesting story to start, like right at the jump. So,
I mean, a lot of TV series have that slump with the first and second seasons. No, not with Dexter. It was just like balls to the wall, all guns blazing, boom.
I mean, and if you're a Star Trek fan, Star Trek Discovery took 3 seasons to find its groove. So
then they lost it.
I'm a TNG fan. I'm a TNG, and then Voyager was good. I never watched Discovery.
I did not get into Star Wars or Star Trek until Mandalorian, and then I went back and I watched. So, funny story, unrelated, but I did not watch the original trilogy of Star Wars films for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Because when I was a kid, home perms were all the rage, right? So every summer, my sister got a home perm. Every time she was getting that perm, Return of the Jedi was on. And I could just smell the chemicals every time anything Star Wars came on. And I couldn't get over it. For 30 years, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I finally got over that, and then I got into Discovery. Actually, got me into Star Trek. I liked it enough that I started exploring the older versions and getting caught up on stuff.
Discovery lost me when they went into the future. It's just like, it's just like with all the stupid stuff, like okay, well, let's just have force fields hold the nacelles together and all that stuff. It's just like dumb and all that stuff. But it's just like, I don't have a problem with with like the current event aspects and everything that they cover. I don't have a problem with that. Although I do think that it was kind of funny that, like, in the earlier seasons, like before it lost me and everything, you would have the ship getting pummeled by an enemy, and you would have the Doctor and you would have Stamets, like, like talking about their feelings for each other and stuff like that while the ship is getting pummeled.
Yep.
And everything. And then with the very first episode of Strange New Worlds, there was a shuttlecraft that picked up Captain Pike, and it was called the Stamets. And I'm thinking to my and that's like I got it because my whole I had a major problem with just like okay they're discussing their feelings for each other, and the ship's getting blasted by an enemy and everything. And they're like, "But I love you so much," and blah 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 blah, and and I it has nothing to do with the fact that it was two gay characters. I would have said the same thing if it was a man or a woman, but it's just like you're discussing their your feelings for each other and everything. So it's just like, so when that shuttlecraft, the Stamets pulled, came up and everything, I'm like, see, that's what happens when you're discussing your feelings when the freaking ship is getting pummeled. That's what happens
That's fair. That's a fair assessment. I mean, if you're not concentrating on defense at that point, what are you really doing with your life?
Right. So
literally.
So meanwhile, somebody that like, actually does their freaking job and like goes crazy and does like they get a starship. No, Stamets, you get a shuttle. Right. And now we're going to bring in Sandra's husband, Doug, to do his Beer of the Week segment. What's up, Doug?
What's up, Bill? How you doing?
I'm good. You got something Dexter related for us?
Dexter related? No, not really, but it is close to Miami, right? Is that I believe that was the location, right?
Pretty much. The majority of the show takes place in Miami.
Right. Okay. So it's not necessarily Miami, but it is South Florida, in Oakland Park, Florida. So it's south, between basically Fort. Yeah. Fort Lauderdale, Fort Lauderdale. So basically close. But this is one of my favorite breweries in Florida. It's kind of far away from us. So I've only been here once, but I have been here. I've done the tour here. This is from Funky Buddha. All right. Funky Buddha. They are very funky. They do have a lot of different styles of beers, but they're dark beers, as we know on the channel. I am especially fond of. This is their beer called Void Shaker. And it is a whiskey barrel-aged vanilla latte stout.
So that's a lot going on in a can.
Yes.
Beer with whiskey and vanilla.
Yes. It is 11%. So 11% in a can, which is kind of impressive. But here, let's give it a pour here real quick, and I'll talk about it. So as most of the dark beers I do on the channel, very thick, pours like motor oil. Very dark color. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but kind of amberish as well. Yep. So a little bit of a head, not much, which is good, especially for a barrel aged stout. A little bit of head, not much. It's leaving a little bit of residue on the glass as I sift it here, which is awesome.
One of the bad boys is going to mess you up. But
it's 11%. And on beeradvocate.com, where I get all of my beer reviews and such, it scored a 91 out of 100. A lot better than the one we did last week, Bill, if you remember fondly, my review of Coors Light.
And if they sponsor us, we love
Coors Light. If they sponsor us, we love you. Yes. Oh yeah, definitely a lot of vanilla on the nose. Oh yeah, and the whiskey as well. Vanilla and whiskey are coming through very strongly with this beer.
Actually, I could see how vanilla mixed with whiskey would actually taste pretty good. I'm not even a liquor drinker, but I can see where that would taste pretty good.
Yeah. So, but yeah, definitely the whiskey and the vanilla are definitely coming through on the nose. But it's their limited edition barrel aged imperial stout. It's mysteriously dark. This is the readout of how they define it. Perfectly balanced and aged exclusively in High West distillery barrels. So the whiskey they use is from High West. But here, let's give it a taste. Oh yeah, yeah. You can chew this beer; it's so good. Um, no, I've had this beer before. It used to come in bottles, and several years ago, we're talking, I think, pre-COVID. It used to be sold in bombers, so a 22-ounce bottle is the only way you could get it. Then they went to 4-pack bottles, and now they're in 4-pack cans. So I don't know if it's supply issues or why they decided to change it up, but this was at one point a special release that was only available in just one single big bottle.
I have a question, Doug.
Mhm.
I don't like drinking beer out of a can because it gives like an aluminum taste to it or whatever. I just don't like it. I prefer to drink out of a bottle.
Right.
So why would they switch from bottles to cans?
Cost. I'm pretty sure it's 100% down to cost because they want to keep the cost of the beer reasonable. Like this 4-pack was $15. For a 4-pack of 12-ounce cans was $15 at Publix, right? But it's also an 11% beer as well, right? So at this point, it was a bomber bottle, I think was $20 at the time. So 22 ounces for $20. And now I got 48 ounces for 15, right? So because of the cost, opposed to one bottle opposed to 4 cans, it's more cost effective, right? Because they want to keep that cost low. So that's why I would, and you know, they can also mass produce cans, I believe, a lot faster than bottles.
Well, this is true.
As far as the assembly line, filling, you know, getting it out and everything, they can do that so much faster in cans than they can in bottles. Plus, you know, if a bottle breaks along the line, you know, it's one thing, but cans don't break. They can get dented or scratched or whatnot, but they don't really break. Whereas a bottle breaking on an assembly line, you're talking minutes to hours being down of cleanup and everything. But if a can gets dented, they pull it out, put a new one in, and send it on its way. Right.
Okay.
So just from a cost perspective, that's what I would say. But no, I've had this beer before. I will say from this brewery, and if I can get my hands on it, I will, and I'll review it on the show. But they do a beer that has literally the name of the beer is the 4 words that I look for in a beer. And if a beer has one of these 4 words in it, I usually draw an eye to it, and I'm intrigued by it. But their beer that they sell, it's called Maple Bacon Coffee Porter. It's a beer you have at breakfast, but it is so good. It is one of the best beers I've ever had from them. It is amazing. And I think the logo for it, at least the last time I had it, was literally a pig in a coffee cup, like sipping on the beer. I mean, it was amazing. Just like a pig in a jacuzzi, but the jacuzzi was a coffee mug and just sitting in it, drinking the beer. But Maple Bacon Coffee Porter is one of their best beers I've ever had. It is amazing. That beer is about $40 a bottle, and I believe it still comes in the 22-ounce bombers. So,
okay. All right. Well, I learned something. So, thanks a lot for bringing us that one. I'm always interested in learning, even if I'm not going to drink the stuff because I'm stuck on my Bud Light, as any longtime listener of the show knows.
yeah,
they need to sponsor us. But
I'm going to get you converted. I'm going to get you onto a good beer. Trust me. One of these days, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you on. You're going to taste it, and it'll be like, okay, I'm never going back to Bud Light again. This beer is an extra $3 or $4 that I normally pay, but it's so much better.
So, are you
I'm going to find one.
Doug, are you just a beer guy, or do you like cider too? Because I'm a big hard cider fan.
Oh, I love cider. I love cider. My favorite is Magners. If you can find it, it's kind of hard to find, but Magners makes an amazing cider. What are some other ones that I've had? I was at Tampa Bay Brewers Ball a few weekends ago, about a month ago now. And they had ciders there, and I sampled like 4 or 5 ciders from different breweries around the area in Tampa, and they were really good. Also, I'm a big mead guy. I love mead as well. I used to brew mead back in the day, and I've also brewed beer as well. I've home brewed before and such. So very, very passionate about beer, mead, cider, whiskey, bourbon, all the fun things in life. I love all of them.
Awesome.
So good. And always as a reminder, ckcbeer@gmail.com. Hit me up. Go ahead, Bill.
Is it CKC beer or is it CKC underscore beer? Wait,
No,
underscore is the Twitter page. Never mind. I'm sorry. I'm confused.
CKC beer, all one word, ckcbeer @gmail.com.
Right.
Hit me up, send me a message if you want me to review a beer. I'm happy to try and find it, good or bad. If you're just like, hey, I want to see this guy review this nasty ass beer, just send it over. I'll do it.
I'm gonna buy that one, honey. And you can review it on this channel.
Oh, Sandra wants a T-shirt.
I'll be happy to do it.
Sandra wants a T-shirt because we said a couple episodes back that that the first person that actually provides you with a beer to review, they would get a free T-shirt. Sandra wants a T-shirt.
I would love a T-shirt. Well, I found a dill pickle beer that sounds positively disgusting that I just said, I'm gonna buy you one.
Well, you do it, Sandra. I will send. I'll have you a T-shirt made, and I'll have it like exclusively to the co-host. So.
So someone else better send him a beer before me. Well, I don't know. Now maybe the viewers are like, no, let him drink the pickle. Like, I don't know.
I'm all for that.
If drinking Bud Light wasn't bad enough to hydrate me, you're going to give me some electrolytes and a pickle beer as well. So, okay.
Your wife, not me.
Oh, yeah. Fair. But no, Al. If you buy it, I will drink it. No, because beer is beer to me. Like, and I think several episodes back, it may have been even our first episode I was on, Bill. I've said that there's a difference between a beer geek and a beer snob, right? I consider myself a beer geek. I appreciate beer. I review beer. I critique beer, etc.
Yeah, I'm a beer snob. I only drink one thing.
Right, but if I'm at a baseball game and my buddy buys me a Bud Light, I'm gonna drink it. It's beer. I'm a beer geek. I know it's gonna taste like ass, but it's a free beer. I'm gonna drink it. So that is the difference between a beer geek and a beer snob. A beer snob shoves his nose up, and said, "Oh, it's Bud Light. Oh no, I can't possibly drink that."
But if Bud Light wants to sponsor us, we all love Bud Light.
That's right.
But I actually do. That's my go-to. That's my number one beer.
That used to be my go-to before I discovered cider.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, cider is amazing. I have a deep appreciation for cider and the people that make it and whatnot. I've never made it, but then again, I love cider. It's crisp and refreshing, especially on like a hot summer day in Florida. I'd rather have a cider than a beer. If I'm at the beach or whatever, I'll buy a 4-pack of cans of cider or something. It just hits the spot, especially with it being hot out and everything and muggy or whatever. Just nice crisp cider, man. It hits the spot. So
there was this brand of cider that I found that was called it was the company, I think it was called Dickens.
Dickens cider.
Yeah.
Nothing better than a nice warm
Everyone
Dickens
loves
cider.
the Dickens cider.
I don't think I would.
Everybody knows about Dickens cider.
Well, I know Jim, but I couldn't resist because of this.
No fault to you for the joke, but
But I had to go there. It was the first time we talked about cider, and I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for this moment.
He's been
So I had to talk
in.
I had to talk about Dickens cider.
Yeah.
The ironic part is we have a gay man on as a guest.
Yeah.
So that's CKCB. That's just CKCB. That's just how things go on this show.
There is no shame in it. I'm all for a good joke.
All right, well, thanks a lot for listening to everybody. We appreciate the hell out of it. Please subscribe and follow the YouTube page, or comment, or follow us on whatever streaming platform you use, Spotify, iHeart, Apple, whatever. 5-star ratings are awesome. Really helps us grow, but what helps the most is the word of mouth. So if you like us, tell a friend, and if you hate us, tell an enemy. And until next week, later.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers.
make it right for you. It's the end of the